Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Will It AI. And in this episode, I was able to, after about an hour and a half, unfortunately, get GPT 4.0 to create the Python script needed to turn my onboard webcam into a voice controlled camera. Now, if I had any significant coding experience, it likely would have went way quicker, but I'm going to show you the process that I went through after my demonstration. But for the sake of those who only want the actual functionality, I'm going to copy and paste the code into the show notes and you can get them there. But let's move on to the demonstration. So here's the code that I got to after about an hour and a half of tweaking, and I've placed it into Visual Studio. GPT has also informed me how to get this so it's just constantly running in the background, so that it will always be a voice controlled camera. But I don't know how much processing power that would take and if it would slow down my computer. So I haven't done that, and I just run it when needed. So presently, with the code in here, I'm going to hit play so that it's running. And right now, what the code is doing is it's looking to see if the webcam application is even open, which it is not right now. It used to print out what it was doing through the processes, but it was having issues with delays on the actual voice command portion of this, where it was informing me how it wasn't understanding the voice command, and that delay was making it very difficult to be usable to talk to it because it was constantly telling me that it wasn't understanding the code or the voice command. But what we'll do is we'll open up the camera app. When I do that, the voice command in this case to take a picture is webcam take a picture in X seconds. And so it's constantly listening for that command type when I open it. If it doesn't get that, so if I'm talking while I have it open, it's going to be consistently informing me that it's not getting the right command. So whenever you're talking and not actually using the voice command, you need to give it about 3 or 4 seconds of silence beforehand. But we'll probably have a real-time example where we have to do that. Let's go ahead and open it. Webcam, take a picture in 3 seconds. And there it just took a picture, and you saw the countdown clock potentially in the top left-hand corner. But right now it's listening to my talking and it's not the right command, so it's constantly informing me it's not the right command. So I'm going to wait about 4 seconds and give it a new command. Webcam, take a picture in 2 seconds. Webcam, take a picture in 5 seconds. And there you go. So you can see that it works. So one of the things I've noticed is it struggles with 1 second. Sometimes it prefers 1 second or 1 seconds. Let's give that a try after a break here. Webcam, take a picture in 1 second. Webcam, take a picture in 1 second. And there, for whatever reason, the code says it's okay to say second, but it actually needed seconds to work for whatever reason. But again, if you just want this functionality, I'll copy and paste this code in the show notes. But for those of you who want to see how this process all went down, stay tuned. Okay, so for those of you that want to see the process, well, I guess first step is let's show you the 4 pictures it took here, just to show that it saves to the computer. But I wanted to jump into the actual process here of how I got it to the point where it's taking pictures via voice commands. I will say you may have noticed I had to get really close to the computer in order for it to hear my voice. I don't know if that's a factor of my onboard camera just not being very good, or if it's this part of the code here that it looks like it's adjusting for ambient noise. Like I said, I have very limited coding knowledge, so I don't even know what exactly this is doing here or how to adjust it. So for those of you who know more, go ahead and put your thoughts in the comment section below. And then let's go over to the GPT-4 prompt that we used here. So this is the original step of, like I said, about an hour and a half long process of getting to where we are now. And the first prompt was, I need you to help me solve a problem. I want to create a little mini app that automatically runs when I bring up the webcam application up on my Windows 11 computer. When the application is open, I want it to be listening for my voice so I can voice command it to take a picture in X seconds. So for instance, I'd open the webcam window and I'd say, webcam, take a picture in 3 seconds. It would provide a countdown on the screen from 3, then 2, then 1, and then the application would take a picture. I only want it to be listening for me when the application is open, however, and I want it to listen for the directions when I say webcam. Is this possible to create so it automatically runs whenever the webcam app is open and then closes wherever it's closed? So I would say it got to this point here ultimately, but we had a lot of pain points throughout the process. So the first kind of issues here was creating these codes, and I wasn't realizing that it was referencing the executable of the camera app and how it was looking for it, and it was just using generic terms to find a webcam.exe, and that was not what it was on my computer. So it just basically wasn't doing anything when I would run the application. So I asked it, why is it not doing that? And it mentioned it might need to have that information. So I said, well, where do I find that information? It said to look on the task or the application task status once the actual camera is open, which I did, but I could not find the actual executable file name. It just said camera. So then I asked it, how do I find the actual application name that you need for this code? And it provided me with this Python code to run. It's called, or I named it file name. And when you run it, it provides all the executable programs that are running on my computer presently. I won't go through all these, but I did at the time to try to find the one that looked like the webcam. And it ends up being, I believe, Windows camera. Well, I guess we can look in the actual where is it? Windows. Well, Windows camera.exe. Yep. So here is the actual name, and I found it by looking through all of these. And then it got me a program that ran much more further along, but when I would open the webcam app and it would say it processed it properly and it took a picture, I was just getting this little black box down here and it wasn't actually taking a picture. So I mentioned in my prompt somewhere, again, this is so long I'm not going to find exactly where in the prompt though, when I click this button manually, you can tell I'm actually depressing it. So I asked it, is there a way to ensure that you're actually clicking the button to perform the action? Because you're saying you are, but it's not. And it said, yes, let's find this button on the screen. And the way it phrased it, it made it sound like it was going to find the absolute location of this button on the entire screen. So if I were to move this anywhere, it wasn't going to find it in the right place. So I preemptively asked it, like, I think this is going to find its absolute location on the entire screen. Can you find it within the application itself? It acknowledged that it was going to incorrectly do it. So in order to find this remote location, knowing my limited knowledge of how to even do that, it provided me with this other code, which is find, or I named it find button. And when you run it, it tells you to put the cursor over that button for 5 seconds, and then it finds the relative location here. And then that relative location was put into the code here after I told it what to find. So that's a pretty big button. So it's 1240, 532. in my actual code, when I just touched the button on when running that code, it was pretty close at 1222, 526. But so that was the step that I took there to get that general location. Once we got to that point, it was actually operating fairly closely to what I wanted it to do. However, the voice command function was really crummy. I think now in retrospect, it was just because I simply wasn't getting close enough to the computer itself. But there was also an issue where it had built in a long delay time for how long to listen for an incorrect code. And I think that was up here. And I just found this. So this, yeah, source timeout 2 seconds. Originally, I think it was at 5. And so it would listen for a very long time once you started talking. And then you had to give it a very long duration of silence before you gave it the correct code. And it was almost unworkable at that point. So I just kind of happenstance found this. I don't even think GPT walked me through this point. I just kind of found that based on what it's called, sr.Recognizer.listen, and tweaked this down from 5 to 2 and got a lot better results. So let me close that. But yeah, so that's ultimately how we got to this step. I'm trying to think if we had any other major issues. Those were the big ones. And you can see here, sometimes I would literally give it back its own code and tell it what the issues were, because it would start creating code that was slightly different from what it was giving me. And I was getting different functionality, and I'd have to reset it back to what we were, like the present state of what we were working on. So you may have to do that as well. But that is basically it. And again, this took me a really long time because I have such limited coding knowledge. But the fact that through just normal everyday language, I was able to communicate with GPT-4, it was able to give me back the code to create this voice-activated camera, I think is incredibly cool. And I'm hopefully going to use this to generate some of my thumbnails, because it's hard to do anything with your hands if you have to click while you're doing it. So that was the original reasoning behind even creating this. And it was fun to go through the process. Hopefully it was fun for you guys to see this, or at the very least, hopefully the code helps you if you need a voice-activated camera. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope this helped.